Mute, I think.
I would say maybe mute yourself. Yeah, and then if you have a question, you can use the raise hand feature, put something in the chat. Of course, if you're having issues with that, you can always unmute and just say, hey, Lindsay or Brad, do you mind if I add something? But I think muting yourself for right now would be the most appropriate. Thank you for that question, Pami. Okay, so my name is Lindsay Elliott. A little about me. Well, I'm the new interfaith coordinator. I've worked within the county for 10 years now. So I've worked in school-age childcare, also known as SAC. I've worked in therapeutic recreation. I've worked in ITC, and now I'm here. Just some other facts about me. My higher education, I went to the University of Virginia, and I also went to George Washington University, but I love University of Virginia. So you'll always hear me refer to myself as like a Wahoo or a Cavalier. I just never really repped George Washington. But I did go there for graduate school. And just another fun fact is I have a 2-year-old cat. He's a Siamese mix, and his name is Kobe, and he's just my little baby. So that's a little bit about me. I'm not sure how many of you all are maybe new to this meeting or haven't attended in a while, but just to ensure that we all know our purpose, Faith Communities in Action is a network of faith communities, community-based organizations, and government agencies that foster interfaith communication and cooperation to build and strengthen human service resources throughout Fairfax County. So this evening, we'll have Brad Cochrane from Fire and Rescue help us strengthen our human service resources by sharing some important information on community risk reduction. So Brad, please feel free to introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. So as Lindsay mentioned, my name is Brad Cochrane. I am here with Fairfax County Fire and Rescue. I, in a nutshell, worked about 31 years as a uniformed firefighter until last December when I retired, and then came back as a civilian for the fire department this actually last December 2024. So I took about 6 months off after a full career, and then came back as a civilian for fire and rescue. So more specifically in community risk reduction and life safety education. Most of my prior role as a uniform person was in operations, so in the fire station and running calls in the field. So I bring a pretty good background in the fire department, so hopefully can field any questions that come up. If I can't field them, I'll find the answer. I did spend a few years of my career in the fire marshal's office, which gave me some background in prevention, which kind of led to me putting in for my current role in community risk reduction, which is all about prevention and trying to be proactive and get in front of the call or upstream rather than what I was used to in the field, which is responding to the call that's already occurred, so being reactive. So that's in a nutshell a little bit about me, and so here to talk about the fire department, answer any questions that I can, and again, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Great. So I will start sharing now. Let's see here. Give me one moment. Okay. All right, Brad, does it look good to you?
Looks good. So
all right.
Yep. So community risk reduction is one of many sections of Fairfax County Fire and Rescue. It's a large department, and I will talk a little bit about what we do, and then again, I can field any questions about the fire department in general as well. So the first slide is really just kind of a visual on how far we've come in the fire service over the years. So we came from a 2-wheeled cart, and everyone's seen the horse-drawn carts from back in the day, as they say, where they transported the water pumps via horse. And then there's several pictures. Most of these are Station 1 in McLean, which I know one of the participants said that they were from McLean, so this will maybe hit home for you. A lot of these pictures are from the McLean Firehouse. So that was our first one. They are in the current location they moved into in 1987, which is hard to believe. It seems like it was just yesterday, but prior to that, they were down off of Chainbridge Road. There's still a historical marker off of Chainbridge Road that you will see on the bottom of Laughlin Hill where it meets Chainbridge Road, where you can see the historical marker for the old firehouse. But and then you can see the last slide shows a drone, and that just, again, shows how far the technology has come from the two-wheeled cart where we transported the pumps in a very antiquated way. So things have come a long way, but we're still growing and using technology to this day. We use a lot of data, which we'll get into on some later slides, in order to drive what we do and try to maximize our efficiency in the fire department. So there's a lot less guesswork these days with data, and we can be hopefully more efficient with our resources. Thanks, Lindsay. So I will do a brief overview, and again, happy to take any questions. A lot of people, even if you live in the county, are not familiar with the way the system works. So I will give you, in a nutshell, just some fast facts about the county. So the map that you see on there is a map of Fairfax County. It's about 400 square miles, give or take a couple miles. There are 39 stations, all staffed 24/7, 365 with career firefighters, supplemented by volunteers. So we're a combination system. As you move around the country, there's a lot of volunteer-only systems. Fairfax is a very affluent county, so it's one of the larger departments and well-known departments in the United States, and a very good reputation. One of the things we're known for is Virginia Task Force 1, which we'll get to on a slide later on. They are the ones that get deployed not only within the United States to disasters such as 9/11 or the Pentagon or Oklahoma City, but also internationally. We've been to a lot of earthquakes, everywhere from China to Russia to everywhere around the world. It's a pretty well-known team. So about 1,400 career uniformed, supplemented by 350 volunteers and civilian staff. The two divisions refers to, if you look at the map and basically draw a line through the center horizontally, we call Division 1 the north side of the map, and then Division 2 is the south side. There's 8 battalions, so 4 battalions per division. So strategically placed for maximum response. And then you can see just a snapshot of the unit responses in a given year. So that was last year. And if you look at a dot plot of our calls over the years, with the exception of 2020 for COVID, generally calls are on the rise, and I don't expect that is going to change anytime soon. So fortunately, we do have a lot of resources, but call volume is increasing. So that's where community risk reduction comes in. So anything we can do to prevent the 911 call and or get ahead of it and or train people to respond prior to our arrival, that's kind of what we're all about. So thanks, Lindsay. So this is just a slide that kind of talks about the different areas of the fire department. So I'll go over them very briefly. Fire, of course, is something that is never going to go away. That's something that we've always done. However, it really statistically, it accounts for about 25%, depending on the given year, of what we do. So about 3/4 of our calls are EMS calls, or emergency medical services related. I think the last number I saw was 78%. Everything else falls into the fire category. So we do everything. We go on accidents. We go on high angle rescues at Great Falls Park. We go on public services to, get people out of sewers. Any kind of emergency or problem that occurs, people, when they don't know what to do, they call the fire department. And when we show up, we try to take care of the problem. So that's a little breakdown of the calls. We have a very robust fire marshal's office, which is it's over 100 people. And within that fire marshal's office, and this could potentially impact some of you at your houses of faith, the fire marshal handles, in addition to inspections and re-inspections and retesting of alarm systems, They also do plans review. They do have a revenue and records section. And like I said, they do not only inspections in order to get they call it a non-RUP, so it's a non-residential use permit. So a certificate of occupancy is what they call it in other jurisdictions, but they do a lot. And that's 100 people. There's a lot of jurisdictions where the fire marshal is a one-person show. So the county, again, is very blessed to have a lot of resources. The USAR team is what I referred to as Virginia Task Force 1. They are one of two task forces within the nation that are deployed, as I said, internationally and within the United States as well for disaster response. So hurricanes, earthquakes, and everything in between, they get deployed. So, and then there's technical rescue and hazmat units are strategically placed throughout the county. They provide expertise into technical rescue is rope rescue. So Great Falls is a good example of that. Hazmat is more of any kind of chemical release or a tanker truck on the beltway that turns over and we have to offload the product, et cetera, et cetera. The training academy is very busy training not only our new recruits, which we run about 3 or 4 schools through a year, but also keeping up with all the certification of the uniformed firefighters in the field, which is it's a nonstop process, as you can imagine. So that's just a brief overview of the fire department. So community risk reduction is what we're talking about tonight. And within that umbrella, so that's a broad umbrella. Within that umbrella falls life safety education, and I'll get into that a little bit, but just think of community risk reduction as the overarching umbrella that covers life safety education, which covers smoke alarms, teaching kids about fire safety, basically everything in between. So life safety education is another kind of broad description. So anything prevention related is what we do. And we will take any opportunity that we can to meet with a group such as tonight, where we can rely on you to be a force multiplier for our mission, because we can't possibly, with a staff of under 10, handle 1.2 million residents and 400 square miles of Fairfax County. We really, and that's why I'm so thankful for this opportunity tonight, where, all of you go back to your respective groups and are able to spread our message. That's really appreciated. So the CRR plan was finalized last year in 2024. I'm happy to send that out. It basically outlines our top calls and top risks. And of course, our goal is to try to do everything we can to minimize those calls, prevent those calls, and bring those down. So it's a never-ending process. And like I said, it is a group effort. So we take every opportunity we can to reach out to groups and try to spread the message. So that's a very brief overview of the community risk reduction plan. I can get into the top calls on some further slides, but we can go on to the next one if you want, Lindsay. So this is a snapshot of and we will send the link out. There is something called a community risk assessment, which precedes the community, the CRR plan, which we just showed. So when you go to the CRA or Community Risk Assessment website, you can find out everything you want about your particular area. So in this case, we just pulled up one area. So this one happens to be 408. That's Annandale. We call it First Due. So Station 8 sits off of Columbia Pike, and at any point, the captain at Station 8 can go to this public website, and if he or she wants to learn about their first due, which is their response area, they can do this. So we did the drop down menu, went to 408. You can also sort by battalion. but we just sorted by station. So in this
Okay.
case, we're talking about Station 8. And you can see all the different areas that you can look at: average household size, number of households, median age, income, and everything in between. Houses without a vehicle, houses without internet. So why is that important? Well, a lot of reasons, right? So as we spread our message, we want to get it out to as many people as we can. So even though we know we might be able to do an emergency alert via computer or email, we have to understand that depending on what area in the county we're trying to reach, we might not be reaching as many people in Annandale as we are in McLean, for instance. So just everything you could think of, and I'm not going to read all of them, you can see them, but households below the poverty line, daytime population, nighttime population. You can see that Annandale is pretty close, but if you go to Tyson's Corner, you will see radically different populations between daytime and nighttime. It is primarily a business community. I was a driver there for many years, and you talk about a challenging place to be a heavy apparatus driver. Try Tyson's Corner. It's tough, and it's gotten worse over the years, or harder. But if you look at the population during the day versus the evening time in Tyson's, it's radically different. So all those things we try to consider as we're either implementing a new program or trying to determine our reach on a certain project. We look at all this first, and we also count on the stations to look at it too, so that they can tailor a project to their needs. So if that makes sense.
And Brad, before we move to the next slide, I wanted to mention that fire station locator. So when Brad first sent me this neighborhood assessment or community assessment, I was so amazed by it. I was like, wow, this is such great information. Let me see what my area has. And where I live, I'm actually situated in between two fire stations. And I put in the fire station that I thought was my local fire station, only to find out that it actually was not my local fire station. And I realized that many of you may know what your home local fire station is, but you may not know what your house of faith local fire station is. And so quickly, I'll just show you the locator. I can pull it up. So I'll just put in the address for the Panino building. Comes right up. And then it shows me that my local fire station is the Fairfax Center. So that's a great way to be able to see what information you can actually put into your community risk assessment to then get that information.
It's a great tool, and it's definitely something that we want everyone to be aware of for all the reasons that Lindsay mentioned. And it comes up a lot. We get a lot, as you can imagine, we get a lot of inquiries to the generic email address on our website. And a lot of them, and we just talked recently about re-engineering the website so that that fire station locator is somewhere near the generic question link, because a lot of the questions that we get are looking for that information. And my boss has an engineering background, so that was his idea. I can't take credit for it, but he's always kind of thinking of how can we re-engineer this or reverse engineer it to make the problem better or whatever. So, and it's not a problem getting inquiries. We get a lot of them, and a lot of them for just that reason. So, but it's a great tool. We'll send it out via chat and via email to everyone, and I think you'll find it to be not only kind of cool, but also handy to determine, your closest fire station. By the way, while we're talking about that, as you can imagine, the county is very busy and you can see the calls. But in addition to being able to see mileage wise, which station is the closest to you, all of these stations are equipped with GPS on we call them MCTs, so they're mobile computer terminals. And so even though you might go to the tool and find out that station 40 is the closest to your house, if station 1 happens to be driving by on their way back from the hospital and you have an emergency, they are going to be dispatched. So if for some reason you see a station or an ambulance that has a strange number on it from Dunloring and you live in Alexandria, then maybe they transported somebody to Mount Vernon Hospital or something weird like that, and they just happen to be the closest to your house. So that's the answer to that. That's a fairly common question. And while I'm talking about it, before I forget, another common question that comes up is, why, if I'm having a medical emergency, did a big giant fire truck show up to my house? And the answer to that is that all of the apparatus that you see around the county, whether it be a fire truck or an ambulance or a buggy, has a minimum of an EMT on board. And most of the big rigs, so rescue squads, ladder trucks, engines, and there's subtle differences between all those, but all of them have 4 people on board, first of all, and 1 paramedic, unless something is staffing wise is gone wrong. So they can respond, and they will respond as a first responder. They can do everything but transport. So we can start an IV, we can give medications, we can shock, everything but transport. And a lot of times, depending on how busy the county is at any given time, they could be there by themselves for 5 to 10 minutes before that ambulance gets there. And they could, and they do revive people, they shock people. And one more thing before we move on to the next slide, there is technology out there where we can see, and there's a giant screen on our 5th floor in headquarters, which shows 24/7, 365, kind of a heat map of the county and how many ambulances are deployed, where they are, where the gaps in coverage are at any given moment in the county, so that our dispatcher supervisor can transfer units for coverage. There's a lot of cool technology that goes on behind the scenes every single day to run the fire department. So I could talk about it all night, but that's a good snapshot of that slide. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brad. And I see a question in the chat. Would you like me to ask you questions at the end, or would you like me to read that question to you now? It is regarding.
Yeah, we can do it as we go along. That's fine.
Okay, awesome. So our question is from Beth. Are care communities like independent living, assisted living, et cetera, counted as households or businesses?
I would say that's not a residence. That's more of a business, and we'll get to a slide where that comes into play. So I appreciate that question. When we talk about, and Lindsay already knows, when we talk about one of our offerings, which is called Community Connect, one of the first questions that it will ask you when you log on to that website is, are you a residence or a business? And so garden variety residence is, like I'm in my house right now, single family home, townhouse, apartment, condo, whereas a, assisted living facility or something like that would be a business. Long answer, but yeah.
Thank you both, Beth, for that question and Brad for the answer. All right, next slide.
So this is a breakdown, and it's, you can see it's 2019 through 2023, so a pretty large sample size of EMS and fire calls in this case, we did 415, which is Chantilly. And you can see the approximate breakdown, right? 7,600, 2,700. That matches up to what I said. And again, it depends on which area. So you could scroll down to 39 different stations, and the numbers are going to be slightly different. But it's highly unlikely that you'll find one where fire outnumbers EMS. As a matter of fact, I'd venture to say you're not going to find that. And the breakdown is generally going to be about 70-30, 80-20. So in this case, you see 7,600, 2,700. And then within both of those, you can see that we can break it down further, right? So we know that in our CRR plan, and I didn't mention this when the slide was up, but we know that when we did that, our top 3 calls are, number 1 is falls, first of all. So that's really something that we're trying to make that number smaller. And that number is 9%, which is a large number. If you think about the number of calls we're running, falls account for a large portion of those. So a lot of our focus is trying to get to our seniors, and if we can get a captive audience of seniors together, and we go out to the centers. I'm going to go out to a place on Sunday that's one of our chiefs' mother just started living at a facility in Tyson's Corner that is interested in getting our file of life, which we'll talk about later on. And so, yeah, falls are 9%. And then beyond that, our top 2 calls after that are cardiovascular, which it's a large umbrella, but heart-related calls. And then actually our third is actually a fire call. It's false alarms. So false alarms are important for us to address because not only are they a nuisance, but also if our engine is on a call dealing with a fire alarm or a false alarm that has been happening over and over again, then they're unavailable to run that medical call that I talked about before, that they might be there first for 5 minutes and are able to do life-saving measures. So that's why that's important. The fire alarm, false alarm calls mostly are under the purview of our fire marshal's office. So we don't get into that too much in community risk reduction, aside from we can track the data and we collaborate with our fire marshal on a lot of stuff, including fires, and trying to, for instance, we'll canvass a neighborhood after a fire depending on what the cause was. If the cause was discarded smoking materials, we will focus on the streets kind of surrounding the area where the fire was. We will show up hopefully within 48 hours and just go door to door. We offer smoke alarms. We offer education via flyers on bullet points on fire safety, but focused on the cause of that particular fire. So that's a good program too. But yes, this slide you can see happens to be Chantilly, but you can pull it up by any area and it will show you the top calls. So cardiovascular is number 1. You can see diabetes, substance abuse. That's surprising that is that high, but you'll almost always see cardiovascular as a call there. And then the fire causes, you can see that smoking is always going to be, on the list. Electrical equipment is common. Cooking fires are very common. Unattended pots on the stove account for a lot of calls. A lot of it is seasonal. So right now in May, for instance, I think it was going to go out today via social media, and we also have a good relationship with our PIO. And we try to, because we can somewhat predict seasonally the calls that are going to happen, we will try to put out messages to get ahead of it. So every summer and every Memorial Day, it seems that there's a couple fires where someone's grill catches on fire and then it catches their house on fire. So we will put out messaging. And I think maybe some went out today, but if not, it's coming out soon. We put out messages on pool safety, window screen safety, all the things that statistically seem to happen every year. We do everything we can to try to get ahead of that. So thanks for putting that slide up, Lindsay. It's good information. Again, this is just another slide that demonstrates the top. So in this case, it's the top 10 medical complaints within the Annandale district. And there's a couple stations in Annandale. There's the main station off of Columbia Pike, and then there's West Annandale, which runs off of 236 near Guinea Road. So if you see Annandale on the side of 2 ambulances or engines, that's the reason why. And then again, you can see that falls is the top call, and then everything else underneath the medical calls, and then the fire calls. It's a little bit different for every first due, but outside fires are very common, and more specifically, outside fires that eventually become inside fires. So a lot of our fires originate on the exterior of structures. And unfortunately, most fire prevention tools are designed, and the code is designed to protect the interior, not so much on the East Coast to protect the exterior. Most of the code is designed for interior stuff. So smoke alarms, fire alarms, exit pathways, doors. But it's not uncommon to have a fire that might start in the mulch, work its way up depending on what kind of siding you have, and your attic could be on fire, and sometimes the residents don't even know about it until somebody comes banging on their door saying, hey, your roof is on fire, because there's no alarm system on the outside of a house. Most people don't have a smoke alarm in their attic, and so by the time the smoke gets low enough to trigger a smoke alarm on the top floor, it's pretty well advanced, as you can imagine. So I mentioned that because outside fires are number one, and that is, like I said, that is a problem, not only in Fairfax, but a lot of jurisdictions with outside fires working their way in. We call them outside in fires. So thank you, Lindsay. So some of the life safety education that we do, every fire chief and every different fire chief kind of has their different spin on a similar program. Our last fire chief called it Safety in Our Community, SIOC, which is basically handing out smoke alarms. So that is something that we do, and please advertise that. We want to get that word out. It's on our website, but every opportunity we get, we want to advertise smoke alarms. We can track where we put them in, so that, and these are 10-year alarms. So we know that every time we go out and put in a smoke alarm, it might be 10 years from now. And when that thing saves a life, we're going to know about it. And that's a very rewarding feeling. And so we have, multiple requests of people calling stations. Hey, can you help me change the battery in my smoke alarm? Can you evaluate my house for where I need to put my smoke alarm? And in addition to that stuff, we also, for instance, this year, we've gone out 3 times this year in the Richmond Highway corridor to install smoke alarms, hundreds of smoke alarms each time. So 3 times, I think a couple hundred each time, in the prefabricated homes or mobile home communities on Route 1. And the reason why was, through data, we found that those were the places that were in need of those smoke alarms. It used to be that it was a more broad brush approach, where every Saturday, it didn't matter if you were in Great Falls or Route 1, it didn't matter all the statistics that we saw you can pull up regarding income levels. Everybody went out for 3 hours, and a lot of the houses and neighborhoods in Fairfax County, they have pre-wired smoke alarms. They have, they don't have the need that other places do. So what we tried to do is focus on the areas that need them most. So this year we found that the Route 1 corridor had several areas that needed them, and we focused there, and we were able to really make a difference. And there's already been, over the years, rewinding the clock a while, there's been documented times where we know we put in a smoke alarm, and then later on it activated and notified the residents. So again, it's a very rewarding feeling. Some of the other programs that we have, a nurse on staff in community risk reduction, a full-time nurse, and she teaches hands-only CPR. It is a layperson skill, and some of the things that we're really trying to focus on are the layperson skills that could save lives, right? So hands-only CPR is certainly one of those. Stopping the bleed, a lot of the AED cabinets, and that's another thing we tried to promote, is AED use. So hands-only CPR, defibrillators, stopping the bleed, whether it be trauma dressing or a tourniquet, And like I said, often they are packaged in the same cabinet. So if you see an AED cabinet, and I certainly, we're trying to get those everywhere we can. So if you need one, let me know, and we will get you to the resources so that you can get an AED. They are a life-saving device, and they are not expensive these days. Um, and so they are often packaged together as a group. So AEDs, hands-only CPR, stopping the bleed. Narcan is another one. If you're not familiar with Narcan, it is another layperson skill that takes a very short amount of training. It's basically a nasal spray that reverses the effects of opioids immediately. And and again, all of those skills that I just mentioned, it's very common that a layperson performs those skills prior to the fire department's arrival, right? There's all sorts of technology where you can get notified of an emergency on your phone and seemingly or potentially save a life prior to our arrival. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of those programs. Older adults, again, we focus on that a lot. Every step of the way is, if you grew up in Fairfax County, or you were a teacher, or you had a child at a Fairfax County school, at some point you probably had them watch one of our puppet shows, which are pretty, they've been going on for decades. So at least 30 years they've been going on. And the puppets' names are Miranda and Jerome, if you don't know. They're very famous. And it's a very nice program for the kids because it teaches them about fire safety. It teaches them about lighters and matches. It teaches them about what tools are for adults and which ones are for children. It also teaches them about family escape plans, meeting places, smoke alarms, and all that. And if you witness one of those programs, and I've witnessed many, you can tell that the kids are very engaged. And it's hard to measure a lot of what we do as far as quantifying, like, what resonates with a child so that they never set that fire, but intuitively that it's happening. So we've been doing that for a long time. We will continue to work with the schools. And so that's a big part of what we do. We call it every step of the way, because we get to them at different levels of their school experience. Cooking safety, I mentioned, that's always one of our top causes of fires. So that's always on the list. And yeah.
Hey, Brad, while we're on this slide, so for every step of the way, I heard you mention the schools. Would a house of faith be able to have the representatives from every step of the way come to their house of faith to do that, as opposed to, like, being in that school setting?
Yes. The puppet shows are kind of a niche market, which is not, again, it's not exclusive to the schools. It's generally done in the schools. But if there was a house of faith that wanted a puppet show, or really any kind of presentation, any of the ones listed on there, whether it be hands only CPR, please let me know and I will arrange it.
And I
Especially if we can get a large captive audience of people that want to learn. We are transitioning to a system where, if you remember the map, there's 8 battalions. I have 4 life safety educators who are they're all ladies right now, but they are each assigned 2 battalions. So, and the battalions generally, not always, but generally, we try to assign them to battalions that are adjacent to one another. So for instance, one of them will be assigned battalions 1 and 2, right? So that's the Herndon Reston area combined all the way over to Dunloring and McLean. And so if your house of faith happened to fall within battalions 1 and 2, and they wanted a program on hands only CPR, I would refer you or that person to the appropriate life safety educator, who would make contact and then arrange the programming that you're looking for. So yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks.
And
I should have specified. I'm thinking of houses of faith that have lots of little ones running around, not doing a
Yeah.
puppet show for the adults, but for those kids that will be in attendance for them to learn safety as well. So, ooh,
I will say that
great to
the
know.
adults, kind of like we were talking before we started, the adults seem to enjoy it probably as much as the kids. One of the last events that we did, and it was actually in Herndon, we we set up and we do the same thing at open house for the kids, but in this case it was an older adults presentation, and we decided we were going to have the fire truck set up just kind of an impromptu little hose line outside after they did all the lecture and the hands only CPR inside. We weren't sure how it was going to go over. It was a massive hit. They were out there having a blast. We gave them all helmets. They were spraying the hose and knocking over the little fire. It was cool. So yeah, it's generally for kids, but watch the adults' faces when the puppet show is going on.
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Oh, sorry. There was one last bullet.
Oh yeah, so home escape planning, that is, something that you don't think about until it happens. And that goes for all of these calls. I don't think I ever ran a call over 30 years where I showed up and the people were like, I expected to see you today. Nobody expects that something is going to happen to them. But when it does, it's really important. So the more people we can notify about that, and it sounds very basic, but in the moment of an emergency, you'd be surprised how much people lose their head, right? They lose their focus. There's a lot of science behind it. And that's part of the reason where anytime we show up to a fire, and not to, again, I could talk about it all night, but one of the first things that the officer of the first arriving unit will ask the resident that's outside is everyone out of your house? And surprisingly, and it doesn't happen often, but it happens sometimes, in the heat of the moment, they will say yes. And we always search anyway in a house fire. And sometimes just, the reason I mention that is because they might, hey, maybe their kid was home from college or whatever. And then in that stressful moment, they forget. And so home escape planning gets into not only getting out of your house, but also setting up a meeting place, which again, you don't think about that, when it happens. So you really have to get ahead of stuff like that. So that, hey, if something happens, we're meeting at the mailbox or we're meeting at the tree out front. And that way, in the heat of the moment, you don't have to try to figure it out. So yeah, we've got a lot of literature on home escape planning. All these things we've got literature on. Happy to share all of it, and or set up something with your particular house of faith. Like that's why we're here tonight, is to try to spread the message and then hopefully drum up some business and help you guys spread the word for us too. Seasonal safety I mentioned. So wintertime, we get a lot of slips and falls, right, on the ice. It's amazing. I know several people, friends of mine, that slipped and fell this past winter. Probably everyone on the call probably knows someone that's fallen within the last couple of years, a friend, an associate, a relative, themselves. It happens and it's common. So we give away non-slip socks, anything we can to try to prevent these things. So that's a couple examples of the wintertime. I gave you a couple of the summertime, the pool safety, window screens, gas grills. Every winter we have people putting their fireplace ashes in a paper bag. After a couple days, they think that they're cold, but they're not. And then they put the paper bag in their garage and it catches on fire and then catches their house on fire. So all those things are seasonal examples that we try to get ahead of. We got a whole plan every year with our public information officer where we say, okay, January, we're going to touch on this, February, this. And there's a lot of topics to cover, as you can imagine. So, and a lot of them are seasonal. You can't always predict. I mean, there could be a window screen incident in the wintertime, but some of them are, you follow the stats. So.
And I did see that Arnett briefly had their hand raised. Did you have something you wanted to share or a question to ask? Oh, Arnett, I can't hear you. You are muted.
Hi. Will the fire department send a representative to the House of Faith to help with fire drills?
We actually, if there's a fire drill set up by a particular business or House of Faith, we will certainly go there and work with the management to help, observe and or make recommendations. We just did that recently in Burke, actually, where they had a fire, and fortunately, it didn't cause too much fire damage. There's some water damage, but they requested just that. They just wanted us. They had already set up. They had their plan, and they just wanted us to come there and observe and also give a talk about it. And it was actually very engaging. And we brought the local firehouse, which is always important, right? I can show up in this outfit here, and nobody knows what I was in my prior life. But you have some troops show up in uniform, it really resonates with people. So
No, I agree.
we always like to have them with us. So
yeah, because we have a plan, and but it's been a while since we actually had the fire drill, and I think that if we had a representative from the fire department to make sure we're doing the right things, would be helpful.
yeah, if you want to contact me again, I'm happy to coordinate with the local firehouse, and it sounds like it'd probably be Station 1. But depending on where you are in McLean, it could be somewhere else. But yeah, please let me know, and I'll help you out.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will be including Brad's email in the email going out after this meeting, so you'll have that.
Okay, great.
I think I can put it here as well. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay.
All right, so I briefly mentioned this earlier, and this is a really important program that we are trying to promote. It is called Community Connect, and we will give you a link for it, and I will give you the Cliffs Notes on what Community Connect is. So you can see here, it's a free, secure, Marlon, my colleague, who some of you have met, who is actually in Jamaica right now, he likes to say, and it's true, that it is military or bank level encryption. So if you're worried about putting your information out there and that gives you the peace of mind that you need in order to sign up for the program, then you can see that information is on the website. So basically what you do is when you go to the website, it will ask you, is this a residence or a business? Which that question came up earlier. Hey, is a assisted living facility, is that a business or a residence? So you will see that's, if not the first question, a question right away. And then basically you just follow the prompts, and what it allows you to do is, you can see on the slide, you can enter in critical information that when the call occurs, which we hope it doesn't, but they happen every day, the units that are responding on their MCT will see, in addition to all the stuff that they're going to see anyway that was provided by the call taker, they will see the information that you entered in prior to the emergency. So if it happens to be your house or my house, I was one of the first ones to sign up because I felt like I should be, and it's a great program. So some of the things I put on mine were, hey, my son sleeps in the bedroom downstairs. I have a gas meter on side delta of my house, which that I put that because I know that they know that terminology. But you can put whatever you want. You can say, hey, my gas meter is on the right side of my house behind a bush. My cat sleeps upstairs under the bed, under my bed in this bedroom. I have an unfinished basement, which is, very important to the responding firefighters in the event of a fire, right? So the reason why is Basement fires are always something that's one of the first things that we try to determine is the lowest level of a fire when we get there. And so if you see a fire truck show up and there's a fire and you wonder why the first officer gets out and immediately does a lap of the house, that's because they're trying to do a size up of the house and determine, okay, how many levels is there? Is there a basement? Is there a fire in the basement? Because, and by the way, if you say it's an unfinished basement, they know going down the road that if they go charging through the front door and this fire has been going on in the basement for a while, what's going to happen? They're going to fall through into the basement. So you might see them take the time to pull a hose line around to the back of the house and extinguish the fire that way, as opposed to going through the front door and then dropping into the basement. So just one example of 100 examples that you could use that for. So, but very important for us and for your family members. So we've really, and it goes back to that first slide on technology, right? So I'm going to date myself here, but I think some of you will remember the Top Finder stickers. And we would put those on our windows where our kids slept, and that was back in the 70s, and they have since gone away. But now it's replaced by this technology that's everybody's got a cell phone almost these days. All the units have computers, so some of the technology has really come a long way. So Community Connect is definitely something that we are trying to promote. Surprisingly, when I first started in December, the number of residents that were signed up for Community Connect was under 1,000. I believe it was 892. And my goal was to try to double that number in my first year, because I think just out of 1 million residents, I think that number is very low. So the last number I heard from emergency management was that it was around 1,100. So it's not moving quite as fast as I want, but with your help, we can move the needle a little bit more. So that's Community Connect in a nutshell. So yeah, there's more information on Community Connect. All this information you can provide. You can provide as little or as much as you want about your property, your contact info. If you want to give your garage code to the responding units, hey, I hide my key under the mat. Whatever. It can be nothing, or it can be as much as you want. If you are uncomfortable with giving your information over an electronic device, that's fine. We understand that, but a lot of people do provide it, and we're definitely trying to promote it. So, and it is encrypted, so that gave me the peace of mind that I needed. But again, everybody's different. But please consider it. Thank you.
And Brad, I see we have a question about where we can find the seasonal information articles. Sorry, might be going back a little bit here.
I have access to all sorts of one-page documents. So for Beth, I can definitely provide you with whatever documents you're looking for. So summer safety, water safety, I will, and I can send them out to the group. I don't have that prepared right now, but I'm certainly happy to provide any kind of seasonal information. And so now we're coming into summertime. So there's a lot of topics that are definitely unique to the summertime. So I will put something together and make sure I send it out to either Lindsay to send out to the group, or I can drop it in the chat. But yeah, it's good question. We are in the process of redoing our website. It's we're limited to what county IT will allow us to do. We have a lot of great ideas, but we can't necessarily do everything we want to. But there is some stuff on the website. It's a little bit tricky to navigate to sometimes. I will try to make it easier and send some summer safety reminders to Lindsay to send out to the group.
Brad, would that fall under educational topics? Because I do have the link to that, so I can.
You will probably find some stuff there. If you are
Okay.
a social media person, I think, and if you follow our site, which please follow Fairfax County Fire and Rescue if you're a social media person. And you will find that throughout the year, like I said, there's a lot of seasonal information that comes out there. But let me try to put together some summer stuff and then send it out to Lindsay, and then she could send it out to the group. That's a good idea. Thanks for that question. Yep.
Yeah, no problem. And then I just saw one other question in the chat taking us back to the Community Connect. Stephen, you asked how can you access that? I will send a link out after our meeting with a bunch of resources. It will include that. Sorry, I will send an email out after this meeting with a bunch of resources. That link will be included. And I also just put it into the chat as well.
Great.
Okay.
It's a great program. It really is.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Awesome. So did we touch on this yet, Brad? I know you've encompassed a lot of Community Connect.
Yeah, it's really, and the picture shows, like I said, you can put anything about your property, the people, where they sleep, where your kids are, your pets. If you have any kind of, special needs, whether it be someone in a wheelchair that's going to need assistance in the event of a fire, anything you want that you think would be prudent for the first responders to know coming in, we encourage you put it there, including, like I said, information on how to get into your house without breaking your door down, which is never our preference. We always try to do the least amount of damage possible. That is not always possible in the heat of the moment during a fire, unfortunately. But any other time, if we feel there's time, we're going to try to take the time to hopefully do no damage. But certainly providing like a code for your garage or your house or where the key is located. Some people even have a Knox box. So, and if you're not familiar with that, I'm sure a lot of the houses of faith here have a Knox box. So that's the gold box that you see on the side of a building that is also very secure. Only the fire department has a key to it. So if your house of faith has a fire alarm going on at 3 o'clock in the morning, we get there, we open up the Knox box, it's got the master keys, and we're able to go in there and hopefully reset the alarm that went off for a reason other than a fire. But if there is an emergency, we can also get in without doing damage to doors, which can be very expensive. So if you're not familiar with the Knox box and you want to be, they're not seen on individual residences too often, but sometimes, mostly businesses, and those are generally handled through the fire marshal's office. There's all sorts of, not all sorts of, but there's rules as to what the height is supposed to be for the box, where it's mounted, how it's mounted. So if you need information on Knox boxes, please let me know. CRR program. So I'll touch on some of the programs that we do. There's a lot that falls under our umbrella. The first slide is a resuscitation reunion. So we do several of these a year, usually, where it used to be that in the field you would run a call and maybe it's for a serious medical emergency and you transport the person to the hospital. And you never really, as a first responder, you never really get that closure of what happened to that person. And over the course of a 30-year career, those things, there's a lot of science behind mental health these days. It's not super healthy to not get that closure sometimes, especially on the happy results. So the first picture is one of those resuscitation reunions where, and I'll give you a recent example. We went to Nova Annandale, right? The campus off of 236. And we got together with every chain in the links of survival, right? Starting with the citizens who called 911. So the two ladies, and this was all, most of these reunions are public and the people want to advertise, but this was a public event. We got together the ladies who witnessed this cardiac arrest. So they together, one of them called 911, the other one retrieved the AED, and together, and I'm oversimplifying a very complicated call, together they were able to start CPR, apply the defibrillator to this professor. It was a witnessed arrest, as we say. And so well before the fire department got there on the ambulance, they had shocked this gentleman back to life. And so we got there, we did our thing where we started an IV, we, gave him oxygen, transported him to the hospital. And after it was all over, we're notified on any kind of resuscitation up in CRR. So we will make contact if the family would like to get everyone together. And it's also very therapeutic to the families, by the way. And so basically what we did in this case was we got together the two ladies that called and did CPR and applied the AED. We got together the gentleman and his family who was resuscitated. We got together the call takers who took the 911 call. We got together the firefighters who responded to the call, the president of the university, the staff, and it's a very rewarding event, and it allows everyone to see the fruits of their labor and also just get the satisfaction that, hey, all that training that we do really makes a difference. So that was one of the most recent resuscitation reunions. And we just did one the other day at the government center, or the public safety headquarters, where it was actually a media event. So it's on our social media page a couple weeks ago. If you look back, you'll see it, but it's a very heartwarming moment if you watch the video to get all those people together. And the family is understandably emotional. The last one that was on our social media page, the son actually did CPR on his father and resuscitated him. So you can imagine that there was some tears flowing at that one, and just very rewarding for everyone involved. So yeah, that's the first picture there. The second picture is an opioid. It's just a flyer on opioids. So again, we offer through CSB in Merrifield, so Community Services Board. They more specifically offer a Narcan class that anybody can take. It's a short class and basically teaches you how to use this nasal spray, which immediately reverses the effects of opioids. A good friend of mine, I think one of the members, when we were doing introductions, said that he was with the House of Faith in DC. One of my good friends within the last couple months volunteers on weekends for a House of Faith in DC, which does showers on Sundays for people that need showers, right? So anyway, long story short, one of the gentlemen that was going in to use the showers had an event where Narcan was applied and used successfully. So I mentioned that just because that happened to be a House of Faith and an instance where one of the many programs that we try to promote was utilized and saved a life. So any of those things could come into play. Defibrillation, Narcan, stop the bleed, hands-only CPR. It's not uncommon when large groups get together, whether it be a House of Faith or any kind of event, and someone has a medical emergency and the ambulance is 5-10 minutes away. It's nice when someone in the crowd has the skills to step up and make a difference. So long explanation of slide 2, but again, it's a passion, and that's what I do, right? I'm here to talk about risk reduction. So the third slide is it's hard to see, but basically it's electric burners. We have, and you can get them on Amazon, but they make these temperature limiting burners. So if you happen to have an electric coil burner in your house, they get super hot. And they get super hot for a reason, but also they don't have to get that hot in order to boil water. So basically these temperature limiting burners knock down the temperature to something that's still going to boil water, but not necessarily get so hot that it's going to cause a fire or a severe burn to someone. Pulse Point is the fourth one. That is it's a app that you can put on your phone that will basically, if you are CPR trained, it will notify you within a certain radius if someone is in need of CPR. I get all the notifications to my phone, and I get the data as far as, when the call goes out, how many people are within a half-mile radius of this person. And it's amazing just the information that you can get these days. But if you happen to be certified in CPR, or you want to be, or you eventually get certified, consider Pulse Point. And I'm briefly describing these programs, but feel free to check it out, or we will send you a link. But in a nutshell, Pulse Point allows you to be a first responder and not only have to rely on you happen to be there at a house of faith, but you could be out in the parking lot. And this happened recently in another jurisdiction. Someone was in the parking lot of a chain store, and they were notified on their phone that there was a CPR going on, and they were able to respond. So again, it's a lot of technology that's pretty amazing. The slide down, you can see the ladies doing the puppet show. That is Jerome and Miranda in the picture, and that is Wai Ling and Candace, are two of our life safety educators. Candace is now a supervisor. But Wai Ling on the left, it's hard to see her, but she's been a life safety educator for 20 plus years, so long time. And so she happens to be assigned to battalions 3 and 7, which encompasses anywhere from Clifton to Centerville, that area there. So if you have a program that happens to fall in battalions 3 and 7, you may see Wai Ling out there. And by the way, Candace and I, even as supervisors, you will see us out there too. So it takes a lot of people, including everyone on this call, to help promote what we're trying to do here. So the picture next to the ladies with the puppets is a gentleman testing a smoke alarm. We try to work with the troops in the field to train them, and it should go without saying, but a lot of people come into the fire department, they don't have any background on fire safety or anything like that. They're all about mitigating the call that they get put on. So what we try to train them to do is, hey, if you get called to a house for a trip and fall and transport the person to the hospital, while you're there, in addition to obviously take care of the call that you're there for, take the time to look around. And if you see a smoke alarm that's next to the kitchen that's hanging down and the battery's been out of it for 3 years because the person set it off when they were cooking, right? Nobody's ever heard of that, right? That's all over the county. We try to train them to take a look around and fix it, right? If you see a problem, fix it. So whether it be a trip hazard or a smoke alarm that's in need of a battery, or someone that doesn't have a smoke alarm, all the fire engines have smoke alarms on them, or they should. And if they don't, they have them back at the station. And if they don't have them back at the station, they can order them. And if they can order them, I'll take them on. So there's a lot of ways that we can get a smoke alarm. So it's super important, and that is always going to be something that the fire department does is offer to check smoke alarms and or install smoke alarms. By the way, there's a whole unique community out there, and maybe some of you know someone that is impacted by either being hard of hearing or completely deaf. There are specialized smoke alarms, and I was never an expert in this until recently, and I'm still not an expert, but I know more about it than I did a year ago. There are smoke alarms designed specifically for hard of hearing or deaf people, which have not only strobes, so a visual smoke alarm, but also a bed shaker. So, if you're sleeping at night and you have your eyes closed, that the strobe doesn't help, but it has a bed shaker that goes under your pillow or under your mattress, which will alert you, and it's connected to the smoke alarm, will alert you in the event of a fire. So just some knowledge that you might not have heard about or whatever, but it surprisingly comes up fairly often. So The Falls program I mentioned, Community Connect I mentioned. The last slide there, the Adrian's Resource Care Kit was an Eagle Scout project several years ago where the young man decided he wanted to put together a kit for autistic patients on the ambulances. So every ambulance in the county carries one of these kits, and it's it contains some tactile type stuff that when they run a child or an adult that happens to fall in that category, it's for that purpose. So a lot of different programs, and there's more. We get a lot of questions every day that, some of them we refer to the stations, and then some of them if we have the bandwidth, we will try to take on ourselves and or find the answer for you. So please, I'm sure there'll be questions after, tomorrow you might think of something. Reach out to me and I will find you the answer. I will do my best to find you the answer and or resource to help you out. Hopefully I wasn't too wordy there, Lindsay, but did my best to kind of give a brief overview of every slide and just a little bit of background. Again, I've been doing it a long time, so it's a passion of mine, and I feel like I have a little bit to offer some people as far as the fire department and what we do. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Brad. And as you all can see on the screen, here's his contact information. There are some links as well that I will be emailing out. I'm pretty sure I've sent almost all of these links in the chat by now, but you will get them via email as well. So yes, I saw Beth do a round of applause. Thank you so much, Brad. Great. I was going to open this up for questions, and Pami, we can just get started with your question. Pami wrote, thanks to Brad for an excellent and informative presentation on what the county does to reduce risks. So based on your experience, Brad, what do you think the community, especially houses of worship themselves, should be doing to reduce their risks? And then there's a part. Go ahead. Sorry. You can answer that. There's a part two. Well, let me stop sharing first of all, so we can all see each other. Well, sorry about that. The part two is, can you provide a 2-pager of do's and don'ts for this topic, or maybe point us to some resources that would have that? Because it sounds like you do have those, that information out there already.
Yeah, I think, and by the way, this PowerPoint, I'm happy to share it with anyone that wants it. So it's a work in progress. Marlon Murphy and I generally put this on together, and anything we have is we are willing to share with anyone on here. I will send this PowerPoint to anyone. It's all public information. And again, we want to try to promote everything we can. So I would say all the things we discussed in here, especially the layperson skills, which are, just easily learned if you don't know them. We do our best to set up tables, and we will do that for this group here. Again, especially as we transition to the life safety educators working by area. And a lot of times we need the station's help as far as setting something up. But all the things I mentioned, so hands only CPR, I can't say it enough. That is, if nothing else, if you call 911, even if you've never heard of it before, what the dispatcher is going to tell you to do is to lock your hands together and, get over the victim's chest and basically press hard and fast, right? That's it in a nutshell. But if you know a little bit about it prior to the emergency, that's very helpful. And it doesn't take long. It really does not take long. We set up a table the other day, and people would stop by for 5 minutes. And when they left, I was comfortable that if something happened, they would make a difference. Because it's not, if you take the advanced CPR class, then you'll get into memorizing the rates and the number of breaths per minute. But over the course of time, people aren't comfortable always giving respirations mouth to mouth. And what they learned was the compressions really, especially in the first few minutes of a CPR, the compressions are the most important thing. So, and proper compressions, right? So a lot of people don't push hard enough. They don't push fast enough. They think they're going to hurt the person. But in order to do a proper compression, you really have to press hard. And that's one of the things that we can teach you. AEDs, I can't say enough about those. Hopefully everybody knows where their AED is. Hopefully everyone has one. If you don't, these are life-saving devices. I mean, those are a couple things off the top of my head. If you want to take it a step further and get into bleeding control kits, we can talk about those. Unfortunately, there's times where those are needed. Narcan is another thing to consider. That is a crisis, right? I think it's pretty well documented that opioids are a crisis. So the more Narcan education that's out there, the better. And the more of those kits that are out there, again, I could train my son right now in 2 minutes to use Narcan, no problem. It's nasal spray. It's just, so I would say all those things off the top of my head would be things that we are trying to promote to reduce risks. And yes, there are, in addition to the summer safety info that I wrote down, we've got a couple flyers. We have some, we call them V pamphlets, where you can scan your phone and get an information that would normally be a hard copy flyer. So let me put some resources together, but those are some things off the top of my head for that question, but thank you.
Can I follow up quickly? If you can put this, just what you told us, into a 2-pager or a flyer or a brochure and send it to the houses of worship, because I think the question is whether they're aware of these things and take it seriously enough,
Yes.
and how to get to the right people in those institutions.
Yep, I will send to Lindsay. I know we have a flyer for sure that's and we have them in multiple languages. There's a lot of languages in Fairfax County. I'm not sure we have them all covered, but we have some flyers that have QR codes that will link you to Community Connect, to Pulse Point. So I'll send, stand by, Lindsay. I'll send you some emails. I'm sure you're getting a lot of emails these days. I'll add a couple to the stack.
I'll be happy to see your name, Brad. And once I have that information upon me, I'll make sure to send it to you, as well as the rest of the houses of faith that are that were registered for today. Does anyone else have any more questions for Brad before we wrap up? Nope. Okay. Just a few points that I wanted to just briefly share with you all. And I will send these out via email, because for some reason I'm not able to put them in the chat, or at least the flyers. So you'll get that via email. But oh, you know what I can do is share my screen. So let me do that really quickly. Okay. Oops. Let's not share this. Okay. So the first piece of information that I wanted to share with you all was the Future of Work Institute. This will be partnering with Deloitte for their Impact Day on June 6th. And so these are going to be in-person sessions held at Hybla Valley Community Center. Food, child care, and transportation will be provided. And so this is a great way to learn how new technology and changes in society and the economy affect us. I know that job security is a major concern for many people living in Northern Virginia right now. So this would be great to share with your networks. I'll make sure to email that to you all. And then just very quickly, there is a resource fair coming up in Centerville. This is on Wednesday, May 22nd, from 4 to 7. Free hands-on activities for preschool, kindergarten, free hands-on activities preschool and kindergarten sign up, free meals, and community information. Hopefully I'll be able to get this out to you all before this, but if not, I will try to put this in the chat at a later time. And then just one last piece of information to share. The Suicide Prevention Alliance of Northern Virginia encourages residents to educate themselves and others on ways to prevent suicide and strengthen mental health through their newly redesigned mobile-friendly website. So you can check out that information here. We know how important houses of faith can be in providing hope and connection for individuals in the community. So I definitely want to make sure that you all were aware of this. And they are having a virtual presentation on dealing with uncertainty and stress in changing times. And that will be Thursday, May 29th, so next week. Okay. And let's see. I see that we're right at 8:30. I do have one last question for you all. I appreciate you all hanging in there. I know it's been a long day. It's the beginning of the week. But I was recently in contact with our let me make sure I get the name right. Our food access program manager. And Pami, I know we just talked yesterday about food insecurity and how we can help support that. So they're actually the food access program manager. She let me know that they'll be having a food access map going live tomorrow. I want to make sure that any houses of faith that are having food distribution or food banks are included in this map. So Pami, we talked about the SIVA truck. I'm going to mention that and follow up for that. But does anyone else, is their house of faith hosting any food banks, any food drives that I should be aware of to make sure that that is added to the food access map? Okay. And if your house of faith does one at a later time or you find out of one, please reach out to me so that we can make sure that that's being recognized. Okay. Well, thank you again, Brad, for that wonderful, informative presentation. I will make sure to get all the resources to you all. I'm hoping, it sounds like Brad has a little bit of homework to do, doing a one-pager and then getting some resources together. So I'm hoping to be able to get that to you all by the end of this week at the latest. I will make sure that the email includes the resources from today, any flyers, and I'll try to get the link from for the recording, because this was recorded, into the email as well. But please feel free to reach out to myself if you have any questions relating directly to interfaith coordination. I can always connect you with Brad if you have questions about fire and rescue, but his information was also put in the chat. So thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you all in July. And I will make sure that correspondence for that gets sent out a little bit earlier. I'm hoping we can meet in person then, but I will confirm everything closer to that date. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening and take care.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you, Lindsay. Wonderful.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Pami.
Thank you.
Talk to you guys later.
Take care.
See you, Lindsay.
Bye, Brad. Thank you so much.